When the new series of Stargate Command does finally hit our screens, who will actually be in charge at the SGC? Welcome to Sidetrack, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. So recently I got to chat with somebody who's been really good over at MGM Plus, talking to us about their plans or hopes for a new Stargate series. Now, I was asking him, will the Stargate still be under the command of the military, or will the military still be heavily involved in Stargate? And he said yes and no. He was very vague with his answer. And that got me thinking, because the last time we got to see Stargate and the Atlantis mission, the IOA, the International Oversight Agency, Administration, Committee was in charge, sometimes called the International Committee. And the IOA, who was sometimes a little corrupt, sometimes, a little bit, except for Wolsey, who was ace in the end, were obviously in charge. There was a deal while General Landry was in charge that basically would allow Stargate to continue operating. The main countries, Britain, France, the French turned up. The French are useless at everything. Germany, China, America, and basically the big five over the UN had this agreement. The IOA would basically become in charge at Stargate Command, or would oversight Stargate Command, and they would allow and facilitate the funding. I like how I said facilitate then. That really gave them power over lots of aspects of Stargate Command. So, in whatever new series comes along, would that still be the case? Well, I was wondering about this because if the Stargate is now released to the public, so if the public know about the Stargate, and I think that only makes sense at this point. I agree totally when Brad Wright was asked this question. He basically said, look, at some point it only becomes logical. We've got all of this technology. We're not using it on Earth. We're using it on these other planets all over the galaxy, but we're not using it on Earth. And considering our problems, it gets to a point where keeping the Stargate secret just doesn't make sense anymore. And morally, yikes, if they were. So, when the new series that he planned all that time ago, back in 2019, it was going to be released to the public were going to know about it. I actually think there would be a continuation of a sort of military and civilian leadership. I can actually see that the facility at the SGC would be moved. It wouldn't be under, NORAD and under that mountain anymore. I think it would be in a far more logical location. It never really made sense for the Stargate to be at the bottom of a, missile tube deep underneath a mountain, except for that if you want to keep it very secret. It never made sense to me, though, in a way, because you can't take vehicles and stuff through the gate because of where it is. You can have the odd little probe, and you got the MALP, obviously, but for me, I would want a large facility with lots of vehicles coming and going, particularly if you're doing things like setting up a beta site, an alpha site, anything like that. Even though the starships can get around the galaxy pretty damn quick and can transport things, nothing can get you to another planet as quickly as the Stargate can. I wanted to see basically like a train that runs up to the gate and just goes through the gate and comes out the other side and, transporting massive goods very quickly. That's what I wanted to see. That's not possible over at Cheyenne Mountain. So, a new facility, very much like an airport or something like that, with high security still, don't get me wrong, because that's the one good thing about having it at the bottom of Cheyenne Mountain. There's when things like you accidentally dial a black hole, you've got some protection there, or you get foothold situations, again, some protection. So it would have to be secure still. So I think there would still be a military element to the command of the new SGC in its new location. I also think, though, there'd have to be a civilian, but I actually think the IOA probably wouldn't be involved anymore. One, there has been some corruption with the IOA. It's not gone well at times. But also, I just think once the world knew about the Stargate and aliens and everything else, there would be an outcry. For one, I think most of the nations on the planet would point and go, we don't want America in charge of this anymore, thank you. You've got the strongest military on the planet, so you're going to have a heavy influence, but come on, it's the 21st century. We're not having it. I actually think the United Nations would get involved very heavily. And if you think about it, they've already got things like the World Health Organization and things like that, that in theory are set up to deal with the sort of issues that can come about through the Stargate, like illness and disease. And they already have a very good working relationship with all of the militaries on the planet and do know how to do that, even though they do it pretty badly. And a deal between all the different countries around the world could be established to agree funding for a project like this. Then they would only have to decide how to deal with the warships that are flying around in space. Now, I could see in the future that the UN, or whatever it would be called in the future, a world government, is really going to be needed to resolve a lot of the worldwide problems like climate change that we're facing. If the Stargate was real, there really would be a crying out for a worldwide government that could manage this sort of thing. Now, I'm not a big advocate for worldwide governments, but there are certain things that are worldwide issues and that we need organisations that can act on a worldwide level. Now, for the Tauri, we would need a Tauri government, one voice that can speak for everyone, and that voice shouldn't have an American accent. Well, sometimes it can, but not all the time. And I actually think that the UN or something similar would be perfect for that. I think the Stargate would have such a worldwide effect that it would need a worldwide answer. Now, there is a problem with that, because the more people you have in the room, the less effective that room becomes. You need to have a command structure that works effectively. You see that in things like the Senate and the American government and things like this, or really any large government, that too many people, too many thoughts, too many cooks do tend to complicate things. But I actually do think that a overseeing committee within something like the United Nations, and then different elements of the United Nations dealing with different issues that the Stargate, and having things like BC-304s shooting around space, issues that arise because of those, would be the most effective way to do it. It would no longer make sense for the SGC really to be commanded by a handful of people. There would be many different missions doing many different types of thing, and there is no way that one general sat at the bottom of a hole really should be in command of that. So for me, when Stargate returns, there will be a new command structure. There will be a new world government potentially, like a bit like a federal government in the United States. Obviously you've got the federal government, but then it sits, and then each county or state has got its own government as well. That makes sense in the United States because there are certain things that are countrywide and there are certain things that are more local. We would still have our local government, but we would also have that Stargate government that actually, in theory, would cooperate with each other. But, let's not be honest, they won't. But kind of that kind of thing, that's what I'm thinking. And if they all wear blue hats when they go through the gate, that's fine too. It never doesn't make sense to me that the United Nations, even today, has got so little power. It's actually like a really good idea that we just neuter. Let's hopefully we can give it some teeth in the future that we can basically imagine, because it's not real. Anyway, so guys, what do you think? Who should be in command of Stargate SGC? Should it be this worldwide government, or does the whole idea of a worldwide government just scare you immediately? Did it tickle off your tinfoil wearing conspiracy hat, panic mode, or is it actually just, the future eventually? Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. Also, where should the Stargate actually be? Should it still be under a big hole under Shire Mountain, or is it more likely going to be somewhere way more public, like basically a big Stargate airport? Get in the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out. You never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can go to sidetrek.co.uk and patreon.com/sidetrek for more Stargate stuff. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.